History remembers the leaders, the speeches, the brinkmanship. But sometimes, the person who saves the world isn't on a stage. He's in a submarine. This is the story of Vasili Arkhipov, the Soviet naval officer who, in the midst of the Cuban Missile Crisis, made a quiet decision. Under pressure, in darkness, with no time to think. A decision that stopped the launch of a nuclear torpedo. A decision that may have prevented World War III. October 27, 1962. The world was on edge. For 13 days, the United States and the Soviet Union stood seconds from nuclear war, after U.S. spy planes discovered Soviet missiles in Cuba. Naval blockades, military alerts, global panic. But what the world didn't know was that beneath the surface of the Atlantic, a Soviet submarine, B-59, was moving silently and nearly started the war on its own. B-59 was armed with something deadly, a nuclear torpedo. But the crew didn't know how close they were to disaster. They had been submerged for days. It was unbearably hot. Tensions inside the sub were rising. Then, on that October day, U.S. Navy ships detected the submarine and began dropping practice depth charges, warning signals to force it to surface. But down below, the crew had no idea they were warnings. They thought war had begun. Inside B-59, panic set in. The captain, Valentin Savitsky, believed their country was under attack. He wanted to fire the nuclear torpedo, not as an act of aggression, but of defense. To launch, he needed authorization from two other officers. One agreed, the other did not. His name was Vasili Arkhipov. Arkhipov, the chief of staff of the submarine fleet, had seen the effects of radiation before. He had survived the K-19 nuclear accident the year before. He knew what was at stake. He urged caution. He said, no launch, no retaliation, surface, talk, wait. It wasn't easy. He faced anger, pressure, the heat, the noise, the fear. But he held his ground, and eventually, the captain stood down. The submarine surfaced. It did not fire, and the world stayed whole. No one above knew what had almost happened. It was only decades later, when Soviet records were declassified, that the truth came out. One man had stopped a nuclear launch that could have triggered all-out war, and his name was barely known. Vasili Arkhipov didn't call himself a hero. He didn't seek fame. He lived a quiet life and died in 1998. But historians now say that his decision, made in the belly of a dark submarine, far from cameras or crowds, may have saved hundreds of millions of lives. It's easy to imagine history being shaped by speeches and treaties, but sometimes it's shaped by silence, by someone who says no when everyone else says yes, by someone who chooses reason, not revenge. Thanks for listening to Echoes of Time. If this episode gave you chills, follow us for more real stories of near misses, unlikely heroes, and moments where the world balanced on the edge. Until next time, stay curious.